at Bangor Business School. My name's Stephen Jones. Eric Hansen, who's there, you should be able to see his picture, is from our partner ManchesterCF. He'll be sharing an insight to some of the slides here. Lisa Jones is the Program Manager for Executive Education at Bangor Business School. Sinead is here and should be here in the list, I can see. And Sinead's involved in marketing and supporting these programs. Danny is the learning technologist. You know all about us now. I think that's everybody. But you know about us. What about the program? Here we go. Financial Crime and Compliance. This is an introduction for you. You'll find at the end that there are a couple of slides that give you how to get in touch with us to find out more. I'm able to change the slides. And as I mentioned already, the program has been developed in partnership between Bangor Business School and ManchesterCF, of which Eric Hansen is this morning's representative, and it's 5 o'clock in the morning for him. So thanks for coming, Eric. I'll ask you to set the scene for our webinar, if you will, Eric, by telling us about the demand for financial crime and compliance, please.
Thanks so much, Stephen. Yes, of course. So pleasure to be here with all of you from all around the globe today. Our firm, ManchesterCF Financial Intelligence, designs and implements compliance training with our clients around the globe. They are some of the world's largest banks. They're smaller financial institutions, law enforcement, national FIUs, etc. And across all of these different implementations and programs and experience with our clients, we've seen really a growing demand for leadership in the financial crime and compliance space. You look at these banks and other FIs who spend millions, dare I say billions of dollars per year on regulatory compliance, right? Everything from their policies, procedures, to the staff whom they employ to help navigate different regulations that are imposed on them in each jurisdiction. But you're looking at anti-money laundering and counter-terrorist financing, national security threats only growing in different jurisdictions of the globe. Certainly here in Canada, but we've noticed that in with our clients in almost every jurisdiction. Compliance is only getting ramped up, doesn't seem to go away. Globally, teams are expanding. Especially at banks, there are armies of compliance people, and those in financial crime. Those institutions need positive leadership and folks with master's degrees to really lead at the helm. Financial crime compliance is not going away. We've seen a real need of education for that next generation of manager, and the economic consequences for failure to find so can result in massive fines and reputational risk. So that's what we've seen over the past number of years, and are very excited to have partnered with Bangor to tackle that head on. Thanks, Stephen. Back to you.
Great. Thank you so much, Eric. Just to expand on something that Eric was saying there, we won't mention the name of the bank, but one of the very large banks that Eric was talking about in general, one of these large banks operating globally has more than 7,500 staff across the world in compliance. 7,500 staff just focusing on compliance. And their big challenge, picking up on what Eric said about leadership, their big challenge is how to get their colleagues across their own bank to buy into this culture of compliance. The fines, as Eric says, are truly staggering in terms of tens, hundreds of millions of dollars of fine. But of course, it's not just the financial fine, it's the reputational damage to the brand. The reputational damage to the brand, which is hard won, but very quickly lost. So we had a conference here a couple of weeks ago, and we were talking about compliance. And a couple of people from the compliance function said, the biggest challenge is that our colleagues say, compliance, do we really need it? And the compliance function say, look at bank XYZ, not a real bank, obviously, and think what's happening in there because they've recently been fined a big amount. And the compliance function is trying to lead their own organization to recognize the challenge before it bites them. And as Eric was saying, there's a need for the next generation of managers, because if it's imposed top down, most policies, whether they're compliance or not, don't necessarily get picked up. If you can get people to understand the reason why and the impact on their job, their future career and their role in it, much easier. So let's move on. There's what's the demand for financial crime and compliance? This is Bangor University. And if you look at the picture, it might look a little bit like Hogwarts from Harry Potter. I'm one of the few people in the world who hasn't watched a single Harry Potter movie or read one of the books. I know I should do it. My grandchildren tell me all the time, Tide, what about this? But Bangor University has been around for over 130 years. We're a traditional university, emphasizing excellence in research. Much of that research has been carried out by our colleagues in ManchesterCF in preparing the material, and the way that we deliver it. We're one of the top European universities for banking and financial studies, and we were one of the first in the UK to offer degrees in banking. In parallel, in our executive education arm, we also offer the Chartered Banker MBA. So we've got lots of experience. The Chartered Banker MBA has just celebrated 11 years. Of successful education with the tagline, one program, Chartered Banker MBA. 10 years, we celebrated it last year. 100 countries, the number of countries we had students from, more than 1,000 graduates on this program. So we know how to deliver these kind of subjects to people like you, busy people who are trying to balance work, study and a social home life. Let me ask Eric back in to talk about ManchesterCF, and he'll then set the scene for an introduction to the program from Lisa. Here's Eric.
Thanks, Stephen. And I'm also ashamed to admit I haven't seen any of the Harry Potter movies myself. So we've got some homework to do, don't we, sir? But yeah, a little bit about our company. We are a shop based in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. We were formed in 2003, 2004, when at that time, we used to give all of our training, compliance training, of course, and AML and anti-terrorist financing, trade-based money laundering training in person. We would show up with our projectors and our backpacks and some coffee and do the training that way. Since that time, and really driven by the pandemic, we've moved all of our training online. So we are an e-learning shop with a terrific learning management system. ManchesterCF offers a wide range of courses in AML and financial crime. We just published a course yesterday on open source intelligence. And we have professionals from around the globe who study through these courses, use it as reference material, people both looking to crack into AML and start their career in compliance, and those in law enforcement who have been doing this for a very long time. Our courses are written with an international perspective in mind. So what people really like are those global typologies, red flags, taking a deeper look at certain scenarios at a bank, what went wrong, what were the failures, how to address it, and again, looking at those case studies. So we're very proud to serve the financial community from around the globe, and again, extremely excited to partner with Bangor on this initiative. Thank you, Stephen. Back to you.
Thank you, Eric. Now, I was listening carefully to everything you said, but through the power of technology, I also went off to find out which was the first Harry Potter that neither you nor I have looked at. And I believe it was the Philosopher's Stone, Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. This is not going to be a continuing theme in this webinar, and I don't think it's mentioned at all in the MBA Financial Crime and Compliance. Harry Potter is not one of, or Rowling is not one of the authors that we cite. Nevertheless, it's important that I pick up on this tagline from Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone to say the philosophy that we have as a partnership, ManchesterCF and Bangor Business School, is we want to educate you about these problems and challenges of not carrying out financial crime, but complying with regulations to avoid financial crime. And that is our philosophy. That is our touchstone. So yeah, last reference to Harry Potter there. What I'm going to do now is ask Lisa to talk. Lisa, as I mentioned, is the program manager for executive education at Bangor Business School. I'm going to ask her to introduce the course structure. Lisa.
Okay. Thank you. So I'm Lisa Jones. I'm the Programme Manager for Bangor Business School's Executive Education Programmes. So the FCC is structured with 4 management modules. They're 4 subjects that you would expect to find on any good MBA programme. Corporate strategy, research methods, human resources, organisational behaviour and managerial economics. So, these are the subjects providing the management toolkit, if you like, and they're combined with subject-specific modules. These are the courses that have been developed using the ManchesterCF units, giving an introduction to financial crime and compliance, financial crime in the banking industry, human aspects of global financial crime, and institutional perspectives of global financial crime. So I think we've got a slide. The next slide, please. So the modules are organised over a 24-month period. In semester 1, we've got a management module that will run alongside one of the subject-specific modules, and these will appear 2 modules each 6 months over a period of 2 years. So the assessment for the modules are slightly different. The management modules will have a 2,000-word assignment and a 2-hour computer-based exam, whilst the subject-specific modules are more project-based. With the exception of the Introduction to Financial Crime and Compliance, they'll have 2 pieces of work. One is a larger assessment of 5,500 and then a smaller assessment of 15,500 word assignments. There we go, Stephen.
Thank you, Lisa. Here we are. Now, the learning methodology. Were you going to talk about this, Lisa, or am I?
Well, this was my slide to come in on, but
go on then.
Okay, thank you. So the FCC programme was designed for the busy working professional and it's offered exclusively by distance learning. The flexible structure allows you to fit around busy work and life commitments. So once you get started and you'll be registered with Bangor University, Danny will then offer you an IT induction, showing you how to navigate all the various IT platforms and introduce you to all the resources that are available for your studies. The first module that's offered is the study skills module, and this is a really good resource because it'll provide tips about academic referencing, the e-library and journals and other e-resources that are available will be discussed in this module. And then the programme starts in either April or October semester. So all modules are found in our virtual learning environment, and Bangor University uses Blackboard. This is essentially a storage system where you can access all your learning materials, assignment questions, and submit your assessments there as well. There are discussion boards in each module, and you can benefit from posts that other people have added, and you can contribute to those as well. So it's a really collaborative experience in between lectures and during your lectures. So the lectures are a combination of recorded and live interactive classes. Recorded content can be watched at your leisure. The schedule for live interactive lectures will be available right at the beginning of the semester, so you can plan your time. And if you're not available to attend, you can benefit from the recording or rewatch them as many times as you like. So each module will have a bespoke study guide, and these are written by the module directors, and they are considered experts in their field of study. You'll also have an ebook and a reading list for further research. So for the subject-specific modules, I mentioned that the readers are from the ManchesterCF Gateway, and these will also be complemented with additional resources and a short study guide. So this is a distance learning, as I've said, but there's lots of support on offer. Every Bangor Business School student, whether they're full-time or part-time, they're assigned a personal tutor, and they'll provide pastoral care throughout your studies. But what's unique to executive education students is there's a dedicated administrative support team that look after every aspect of the programme, including student support, and we're on hand to answer your calls or your emails or your WhatsApp messages. So you really shouldn't feel that distance in the programme. Yeah.
Thank you, Lisa. Now, it may be good news. It appears my camera is not working, but you don't need to see me. You just need to see the slides. But can I just check, Lisa, can you see me?
I can hear you. I can see your image, but it's not moving.
Oh, it's just come back now. Oh, what a shame. Here I am live again. Okay, so thanks for that. That's a clear insight as to the approach that we've developed over many, many years. I mentioned a few minutes ago that our parallel program called the Chartered Banker MBA has run for more than 10 years. Using this type of methodology, we've graduated more than 1,000 successful students. It's a technology and approach to learning that works. And therefore, we're confident that you joining this program, going through this process, you also will find your way seamlessly through the program. Let me just move forward. Before I do that one, let me just go back. Here we are. I want to talk a little bit more about assessment. In my experience, potential students, delegates on programs like this want to know what's the content, but equally, what's the assessment? How am I going to be assessed? And Lisa has touched upon assessment here. Across the top of the table are, and you don't need to worry too much about this, but they are called 15 credit modules. 15 credit modules, they're typical of an MBA. They give you the underpinning skills, how to do research, aspects of corporate strategy, aspects of human resources and how organizations behave, and insights to the economics of management. Those are 15 credit modules. They happen to be shared with our CBMBA program as well, but their pattern of assessment is a written assignment of 2,000 words and a 2-hour computer-based examination. The computer-based examination we've been doing for several semesters before COVID lockdown came. It isn't a multiple choice. You do actually have to write answers, but the technology is well proven. I want to talk a little bit more about the subject-specific modules, where the 4 modules on the bottom line of that table: Introduction to Financial Crime and Compliance, Financial Crime in the Banking Industry, Human Aspects of Global Financial Crime, and Institutional Perspectives of Global Financial Crime. These are the ones that come from Eric and his colleagues at ManchesterCF. We take 3 units from ManchesterCF for each of those topics. And then, as Lisa already explained in the diagram, the circular diagram, the module director then writes an integrated report to tie these things all together, the 3 units that we take, and the assessment pattern is different. I mentioned a few minutes ago that we had a conference about financial crime and compliance and other aspects of our executive education about 2 weeks ago. We also had at the same time a partners meeting, a meeting of our partners around the world who help us to raise awareness of the topics: Chartered Banker MBA, in this case, MBA Financial Crime and Compliance. The thing that particularly appealed to our partners is that after the Introduction to Financial Crime, which, as its name says, is an introduction, it's based on ManchesterCF materials and an integrated parallel accompanying study guide. The other 3, Financial Crime in Banking Industry, Human Aspects, and Institutional Perspectives of Global Financial Crime, they all have a pattern of assessment. They are 30 credit modules, so they are twice the credit rating of the research methods, corporate strategy, those on the top session, on the top line. They are assessed in a different way. There is no examination. We may call this the research element of the program. There is input via the ManchesterCF materials led by a Bangor Business School module director to the techniques, examples, and then the assessment is focused on you going out into your product area, your jurisdiction, geographic, whatever it be, and carrying out 2 pieces of assessment. The first piece of assessment, for 5,500 words, is about you researching the 3 themes which are in each of the subject areas. Financial crime in the banking industry has 3 units from ManchesterCF. Human aspects of global financial crime has 3 units from ManchesterCF. And as a student, you go out and you research those aspects in your particular product area and your particular geographic jurisdiction of operation. Our partners particularly like this because what we may call local contextualization is important. Our partners say, we want students from our part of the world to be able to understand what's happening in our part of the world. And we say, that's fine. That's fine. The ManchesterCF materials and supplementary materials that the module director will give you the generic toolkit, the generic framework. They give you some examples from around the world. They may not give you an example from your particular part of the world for every particular unit. Employers who may be sponsoring you on your program of study, or if you are self-sponsored, you are going to be appealing to these employers when you go to interview. They also want to know that you have a global toolkit which fits all around the world like an umbrella, but also you have the ability to apply it locally. So the 5,500 word assignment in the subject specific modules is about you going out and carrying out research. What is happening in this area, in my product area, in my geographic area? And then the 1,500 words part, which makes 5,500 plus 1,500 makes up 7,000 in total for the subject specific modules. The 1,500 words is about you taking the materials from ManchesterCF and the parallel study guide and working out what is it that's best practice. What do we have to do in terms of best practice, no matter where we are in the world? Okay, what's best practice in terms of making sure that we are compliant as an organization? We have done the best we can to avoid financial penalties, brand reputation penalties, etc. So it's a very practical and applied course about you going out to research your part of the world or your product area, and then writing in the 1500 words per minute. 1500 words per minute, my goodness, you'll be a fast typer for that. 1500 words per module, I repeat, per module. There you're looking at what's best practice in the field, and then subsequently, should your organization wish you to, you could separately have a look at, well, if this is best practice, how does our organization compare? But that may be something your employer asks you to do. We don't actually ask you to do that. We ask you to design the framework and comment on it. So hopefully that's given you a clear insight to the pattern of assessment, both on the management modules and the subject specific modules. We've seen this slide. It's the one that Lisa took us through. This program of study carries dual recognition, dual qualifications. One of them is the MBA, based on those modules which I've just been talking about, 4 management modules and 4 modules about financial crime and compliance. But the second qualification that you get, I'm going to bring Eric back in, is the Financial Intelligence Specialist, FIS designation, which Eric will say a few words about now.
Thank you so much, Stephen. And yes, while I was away, I was busy on Google here in Toronto, and I discovered the second Harry Potter movie is actually The Chamber of Secrets. Now, I was trying to figure out a way to weave that into this presentation, and the best I could come up with is there's no secret that our Financial Intelligence Specialist designation has become a world-class and world-renowned certification in anti-money laundering for professionals globally. We established this designation in 2020, and it is awarded to professionals who complete 12 of our FIU Connect modules or courses. Right? These are all designed by Bangor University and our team here at ManchesterCF. Upon completion of this designation, you do receive those fancy 3 letters after your last name. It's a badge to show management, regulators, colleagues that you know a thing or two about this field. We also issue the certificate and a Credly badge, what's called a Credly digital badge that you can put on your LinkedIn profile and other social medias. But yes, this is included in the MBA program. And for people that want to have ongoing access, there's a nominal fee when the FCCMBA has completed, because there are people that want access to this material as reference once they get hired and promoted, etc. Thanks so much, Stephen. Back to you.
Thanks, Eric. Hey, we're on a roll here with this Harry Potter link, don't you think it just goes to show everybody here in this webinar? It goes to show you can teach. I'm going to say old dogs, new tricks, because I'm not calling Eric old. I am, but and here we are, 2 guys who have never read anything about Harry Potter. Now we're talking about the first one, the Philosopher's Stone, and then Eric manages to integrate the Chamber of Secrets. The final thing to say is, if you don't understand how to avoid financial crime and be compliant, it's probably a chamber of horrors. So you need to come on this program, because this program gives you the Chamber of Secrets. They're no longer secrets. as Eric says, they're no longer secrets. All you have to do is invest time in studying these, and you get this dual recognition: MBA, Financial Crime and Compliance, and FIS. I can see there's some questions in the chat, but let's finish off the actual webinar. Thanks for that FIS insight, Eric. Whoa, over to Lisa. This is all about payment plans, which may be of interest to you.
Thank you. So the headline fee for the FCCMBA is 18,000. That's for the entire program. That's the dual award, the MBA, and the financial intelligence specialist that you'll qualify for once you've completed the program. It includes all the resources, the teaching across the entire length of the course. So if someone presents a recognised MBA on admission, such as the Chartered Banker MBA, for example, they'd be given exemptions from those 4 management modules, meaning they only need to complete the subject specific courses. So the study length is still 2 years, but the number of modules will reduce because you won't do those management ones. So the accelerated programme, that'll be offered at 14,750. So it's also worth noting that students that have been enrolled onto the CBMBA or a short course on our executive education programs will qualify for a continuous learning discount. So please do get in touch if you want to see, what that means for you. And to help spread the cost, we do offer payment plans. You can break down the fee and pay in piecemeal. So if you did want to do that, please get in touch again and we can go through the payment plans with you. Or if you'd prefer to pay in full at the beginning, there is a 5% discount that applies. We do have corporate relationships as well, so it's worth getting in touch with the organisation to see if there is a relationship with Bangor, as you may benefit from discounts in that way as well. So please do send your CV if you're interested. The email, I believe, is on another page that's coming up now, and we'd be delighted to have a look at you and let you know exactly what route that you would be eligible for if you apply.
Great, thanks, Lisa. Let me just pick up on something that Lisa said there, which that's the address. I'll come back to that in a moment and I'll leave it up. But first of all, let me just go back here. In fact, all the way back here. What we're talking about in the accelerated program, as Lisa designated it, is if you have done a recognized MBA program that has modules like this, and we look at the content for the management modules, the ones on the top line here, then it's possible to have exemptions. We mentioned the Chartered Banker MBA because those are straight exemptions because they're common modules. But you may, as Lisa replied in the chat area to Janice, you may also gain exemptions and credits for management modules in other patterns of study. You just need to send it to us. I want to be clear about the second part of Lisa's answer in the chat to Janice. We can offer exemptions from the management modules because those are fairly commonly available, not only on our Chartered Banker MBA, but also other MBAs around the world. What we're not able to give exemptions for are the subject specialist modules, because by designation they are subject specialist modules, and therefore, as I've already mentioned, we take from Eric and his colleagues at ManchesterCF, we take 3 of their units and we make it into each of those subject specialist modules. You may have done one of those units. You may have done something that covers material like one of those units. It's most unlikely you'll have done something that covers all 3 of them, and therefore we can't give you a partial exemption for the subject-specific modules. And before anybody asks about, well, if I've got management module exemptions, can I do the program quicker? I'll address that issue head on now. The answer is no, you can't. It still takes 2 years because this is by part-time study. Typical students, this probably applies to you as well, are both working, as I mentioned, studying, and have social commitments, family commitments. university says, its academic regulations say, a part-time student cannot do more than 90 credits per year. 90 academic credits. You don't have to get hung up about academic credits. Suffice it to say, each management module is 15 and each subject-specific module is 30. By addition, even though we don't have a quantitative methods module, 15 plus 30 is 45. 2 semesters, 45 times 2 is 90. Therefore, if you were to do the get some exemptions, it would still take that time to do the financial crime. You cannot do more than 45 in any semester, so you can't do 2 financial crime and compliance subject specific modules, just to be clear on that one. We've talked about FIS, we've talked about payment plans. I'm going to invite any questions and answers now, but I'll leave up on there the contact details for executive education at bangor.ac.uk. Now, in the chat area, I can see that Lisa, thank you, has already answered some questions. Does anybody have any other questions that that you would like to ask? The thread, as far as I can see it in the chat area, is largely about exemptions for management modules. Johnson Lamb asks, is there a thesis or dissertation? No, there is not. As Lisa explains, each of the subject-specific modules have a research element to it, and so we don't have a dissertation. There are 180 credits in UK higher education for master's programs, and we achieve that through these taught modules, management and subject specific. And in the subject specific, as I mentioned, the requirement to research what's happening in your part of the world and your program, your product area in the 5,500 word assessment. Are there any other questions anybody wants to ask? You can either type it in the chat area, or if you prefer, you could unmute yourself and ask a question there. Just while you're thinking of questions, during the period of the COVID-19 pandemic at its height here in the UK, and I understand in other parts of the world, there has been an increased attempt at fraud, financial crime, particularly because technology usage increased. It meant that people who are relatively inexperienced, naive about the use of technology, were using technology, and there was a general increase around the world, as reported in our conference I've mentioned a couple of times, where people were saying, yeah, attempted fraud did increase. I'm going to ask Eric if he's got any insight to whether or not COVID's had an impact in Canada, while somebody thinks about any further questions. Eric, any thoughts on attempted fraud, attempted financial crime, increased, decreased, the same?
I would say a huge increase, Stephen. A couple of things happened. First of all, there was a tremendous amount of across the Americas, a tremendous amount of money dished out by federal governments to support people who could no longer work or needed assistance in that manner. In Canada, that was CERB. The US had something similar, and essentially you had people claiming and finding a way to get these funds that didn't deserve it. So there was a tremendous amount of that fraud, but as well, we observed an uptick of fraud because people, out of I don't know, desperation, and people had lost their jobs and found themselves in different circumstances, that they were more inclined to pick up a phone call from a suspicious person, click that phishing email that offered a promotion, romance type scenarios and scams as well. Again, because people psychologically were not in a normal state over the pandemic. So without question, fraud has been up in the past 2 years on this continent.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right there. In the UK, we had a similar thing where people who no longer, or rather companies who could not pay their staff their full wages because they weren't in employment because the business had temporarily shut down. Furlough, it was called. That's right. I've remembered it now. Similar, and that was in many places around the world. And yeah, unfortunately, some people took advantage of it. And it's estimated that globally there are billions and billions of dollars that were fraudulently claimed. How to get it back, of course, is a different matter. But bear in mind, this program is aimed not just at people working in financial institutions. They work in regulators and all sorts. And that leads me on to a question here from Brendaline, which says, if one completed the financial intelligence specialist, will this be considered for the MBA? This is a parallel award, Brendaline. You get the FIS when you've completed the MBA Financial Crime and Compliance. So you get the two of them at the same time. It's not considered towards the MBA or the other way around. They are parallel awards. I hope that's answered that question. And Vitor says, how much is it planned to cover EU anti-money laundering regulation in the program? The answer to that, Vitor, is that the regulations around the world are covered in the ManchesterCF materials, North American legislation, EU legislation, and of course, one of the aspects, it gives me an opportunity to again emphasize something that our partners were very keen on, who help us, banking institutes around the world, this idea of application. So as part of it, Vitor, there will be insights in the study materials from ManchesterCF, from Eric and colleagues, from the module director from Bangor, on the Bangor MBA, but also part of it, you will go out and you will look at specific regulation for your product area in your jurisdiction. So that's the research element, which is in 3 of those specialist subject areas. So we set the scene, but of course, you can go out. Oh, I see. Okay, Brendaline's come in with a comment. So yeah, we cover all jurisdictions, Vitor. Brendaline's come back and said, I'm already FIS. Well, congratulations, Brendaline. How does the MBA apply? You study the MBA independently, but people who haven't already got the FIS get the 2 of them. FIS doesn't exempt you from MBA. MBA doesn't exempt you from FIS. So you, Brendaline, will be fortunate. You've already got FIS, and then you would be studying the MBA. Rafiat comes in. Please clarify whether the cloud has contributed to the increased rate of financial crime. I'll hand that back to Eric, but per se, I don't know. The cloud was there beforehand. The cloud was there. Anything that stops us or that separates the 2 parties potentially, I suppose, could increase the rate of financial crime, Eric?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I mean, so almost all data resides now in the cloud, right? And you see hacks almost on a weekly basis of that, despite the major cloud providers claiming it is secure. But I suppose, back before there was the cloud, there were still data centers on premises that could be hacked into. I'm not necessarily a specialist in that area, but for sure we see hacking and arbitrage from the cloud, and I'm not so sure that's necessarily always an AML threat as it is a threat to national security, etc.
Yeah, I think that's interesting, Eric, because you're right to emphasize that there was financial crime and attempted fraud before the cloud came along. And in our conference, which I've mentioned before, we had one session that discussed financial technology, fintech. And somebody said, oh, this is a very new field. And somebody said, two people actually said, excuse me, one was talking about, he was our guest speaker, John Devine from Credit Suisse, and he was talking about his global experience, but one example in Hong Kong, which I'll come to in a moment. And the other example was from the Bahamas. And the guy from the Bahamas said, I started work in the financial services sector when I was 16, which is more than 50 years ago, I think he said. So, and he said in those days, technology was very much about using the telex, even before email. Okay, you type and punch little holes in a strip of paper, and you did telex transfers of financial funds. That was a form of technology. The guy in John Devine from Credit Suisse, actually, I think it was his experience in Japan. He said when he first went to work there in Japan, he went into the trading floor and it was very, very noisy. And he couldn't understand why it was so noisy until he had good luck. And he found that as well as computers, the dealers were using abacuses to do the calculations. It's a form of technology. So there's always been technology. There's always been fraud. In your study guides, the introduction to financial crime, it talks about, hey, fraud started in the Middle Ages, in the 1500s. It actually started in the Roman times with debasing of currency. So there's always been fraud. I think, Raphael, it's a good question. We're not going to get rid of the cloud. We're becoming so much dependent on it. It might have had an impact, but as Eric says, of course, there've always been ways to hack into companies' data. And unfortunately, we're going to have to find ways to avoid that. Any further questions anybody wants to ask? I'm just looking at the chat areas to see if we've answered them all. If you don't have a question at this particular point in time, you know what I'm going to say with the current slide on the screen. Please email it to executiveeducation@bangor.ac.uk. There's the Financial Crime Compliance MBA website as well. Lisa looks as if she might be typing. I don't know if she's typing a reply here. Yeah, so I'll make one last call for any questions that you have. But if you haven't at this time, or you'd prefer to ask them privately, please do get in touch through that web link there, and we'd be happy to answer it. The first cohort starts in October, and we're still receiving applications. Put your CV in through the website in order to see if you're claiming any exemptions, what you can get. Bear in mind, you can't get exemptions from the financial crime and compliance subject specialisms. If there are no further questions, Vito says, thank you, a very good program. Well, thanks for that, Vito. We sincerely hope that we may see you on the program. And any further questions, get in touch with Lisa and the team. It only remains for me to thank Eric for his contribution and sharing his knowledge of Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets with me. I guess what I need to do is I need to go and ask my grandchildren for a very quick synopsis, because when I've watched them reading them, the books are very thick, Eric. Or we could watch the movie, I suppose. But thanks very much for your contribution and your insight, Eric.
Thanks for having me, sir. Always a pleasure. And thanks to everyone who's joined today.
Great. I echo that. Thanks for joining us, everybody. And do get in touch, and Lisa and colleagues will get back to you. Okay. In that case, bye-bye, everybody. Bye-bye.